Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is something a little different, something I haven't done in, gosh, a decade. So I'm doing an interview today with my buddy Tom. So Tom Tourville has a brand new book out. It's the Sun, Sand, Surf, and Sidewalls, looking back at surf and summer music as seen through autographs, the fourth edition. And you can see kind of behind me, I have several of the other editions. And Tom, I'm a big fan. I'm really happy to be having this conversation with you today.
This is going to be fun. Been looking forward to it.
Heck yeah, man. All right. So first, tell us about this wonderful book.
Well, this is the fourth edition of my Sun, Sand, Surf, and Sidewalls series. When I started the first book 13 years ago, I kind of thought, well, what would I like to do with this? And I really thought of a series of 4 books. So that was always my dream and my observations. It took me 13 years to get 4 books done, but each book takes an average of about 3 years. So between the first book and the second book, I did a couple other books, and I've done many books in my life. So this was just kind of bringing these books back to focus, and everybody asks how I came up with the concept of autographs. Well, if you look around on the market, there are a number of really good surf books out there. I mentioned surf music books, Bob Daly, John Blair, all those guys have got great books. I think, to me, the premier author of surf and hot rod music from the decade of the 60s is a gentleman from Australia by the name of Stephen McPartland. And Stephen has done more amazing research on the music here in the United States than anybody I know. So it was really Stephen's books. After I was reading through them, I go, it'd be fun to do something, but in a completely different tact. So I was looking at what's my common thread that I could share and use as my vehicle to do a different kind of book, and something that is kind of maybe somewhat more approachable in some respects, because it comes through the eyes. This began in the eyes of a 14-year-old kid asking for his first set of autographs. And, you see these surf and hot rod bands that were touring from the West Coast into the Midwest. And I grew up where you could throw a rock in any direction you wanted to and hit a ballroom. There were that many. I mean, they were like 10, 15, 25, 30 miles apart. It was really kind of close in music therapy, so to speak, that we had as kids. So I always loved in hot rod music. When I was like 14, of course, I went to the beach movies with Frankie and Annette. And I'm sitting there thinking like a typical 14-year-old. Now, wait a second. These guys are not in school. They're hanging out on the beach. I don't know how to do that surfing thing, but I'm going to learn someday. The best bands, I mean, here on the beach or in the club or in the setting were the Astronauts. I mean, come on. Did it get any better than that? And keep in mind that I had already seen the Astronauts at a ballroom and gotten a complete set of autographs from the guys. So it was kind of like me learning that there was this amazing music. It was right at my doorstep. And of course, the connecting piece, you always have to have one connector, was from Minneapolis, Minnesota, a little group called the Trashmen. And yes, I actually went to one of their shows on their Real Surf and Bird tour in 1963.
Oh man, I'm so jealous.
And what fun it was. And, as a result of that, the guys in the band have become good friends. And actually, my third book, my introduction for the book, was written by Dale Winslow, the rhythm guitarist, and the guy that was in charge of getting the surf sound and the waves crashing with the jacked up reverb. And it was so much fun to get, learn and see the Trashmen. But anyway, I decided to go back and look at my crazy collection of autographs of surf and hot rod groups and artists. And one of the things that I did when I put myself through college, I became a music booking agent. And so it was my job to get on the phone and sell bands to, specifically my agency wanted me to do ballrooms and colleges because I was in college and I knew ballrooms. So that was a pretty easy thing to do for me. And as a result, I also met a lot of the great surf artists that came through and played and participated in the different music venues that were available in the Midwest. So it just really gave me a chance. And so as I did this, I built up this autograph collection. And recently, Dave Arneson from the Insect Surfers did a review on my new book. And I think Dave said it better than anybody else. Sometimes, when you come up to people and say, hey, I've got these surf autographs, they go, what are you, a fanboy? Are you some crazy? You got to remember, this started with a 14-year-old kid who was in awe. I mean, these were my music heroes. It wasn't John, Paul, George, and Ringo. It was Tony, it was Del, it was Bob, it was Steve. And those were like the jumping off point to the Astronauts and the Marquettes and the Routers and the T-Bones and, of course, the Beach Boys. And I was never so separated that I didn't like vocal surf music or I didn't like instrumental surf music. I loved the whole genre. And so Dave Arneson recently did a review on the book, and he goes, you know what? I collect surf autographs. I've got all kinds of things I take to the venues, my records, my CDs, my posters, and I've been getting them autographed for years. And I sat and he said, it's fun. And what I have always found is that I was able to, as a kid, and then up to my, before I entered college, I got a chance to talk to the artists. Now, remember, I'm a dumb farm kid from the Midwest. What things do I know about reverb, about surf, or about hot rod music? Nothing other than what I read on the back of the albums, and I listen to the music. And they weren't on TV. There was no YouTube. All these things didn't exist. So you had to kind of do it from the ground up. So I found out as a kid, it was safer for me. It was more fun for me to ask for an autograph. And inevitably, I knew if I could get some autographs, I could get them talking. And in getting them to talk, I had a chance to meet the surf artists. And I became, I'd seen them 2 or 3 times, quote unquote, well, they must be my friends now. Of course, I was just another face in the crowd along a 20-day stretch of ballroom shows. But to me, I had a connection. I had a point of reference, and it was something special. And this is what Dave was saying in his review, that this concept of looking at surf and hot rod music, but seen through autographs. And autographs to me were like the jumping off point to start this love, to start a collection. And then it gave me an entry point to do 4 books. And to do the books. And, I just figured out, I had never done it before. I added all 4 books together, 416 pages in 13 years. That's a lot of ink, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of keyboards. And so it allowed me to sit and put this thought concept together. And it's really neat. It's very visual. It's extremely graphic. It really takes the surf and hot rod music and kind of puts it here in your face. People are starting to get it now. They look at the autographs, and Thomas had a connection with this group, with this artist, with this sound sometimes. And it really kind of brings you back full circle. Unfortunately, I was not one of the kids that got to see the Beach Boys in 1963 on their very first tour out of California. Keep in mind, Murray Wilson wanted to make some money, and he knew if he sent the kids out on the road to this Midwest where all these ballrooms were at, that he had heard about through the National Ballroom Operators Association, there was money to be made. So he hired his neighbor, who was kind of unemployed, took his station wagon with a U-Haul trailer and out to the Midwest where all these kids. Remember, David Marks, who had already played lead guitar, I think on 3 national #1 albums, was like 14 or 15 years old. Crazy. Think about that. 14 or 15 years old. And Brian Wilson was the old scholar in the band, 18 years old. And they came and trooped and worked through this Midwest ballroom circuit. And they played the ballrooms around me in 1963, but I didn't have the wherewithal to go see them or to get it. Remember, as a kid, I had to beg, borrow, and steal rides. I had to get to these ballrooms. My dad was a high school teacher. He wasn't about to loan this crazy kid out here in music the car. So I had to bum rides. I had to find any way that I could to get to that ballroom on that night and see that band. And also my ride had to wait long enough for me to hang afterwards to get my autographs and to sit and talk to the guys for a little bit and talk them out of a 45, get a black and white glossy, get one of the posters off the wall that night from the ballroom. And that's how a collection begins, and that's how a collection starts. And at some point, and I don't know when that point was, I said, I want to share these. And I had read McPartland's books, and I go, I'm going to take a different tact, and I'm going to take a different path than Bob Daly did. I'm going to take a different path than John Blair did, and I'm okay with what I'm doing. And as a result, I've got my 4-book series, exceedingly proud of it. The reviews on this 4th edition has been off the charts. I've been just shocked with them and really, really happy. So it's been a lifelong passion, a lifelong dream. And I started wearing blue jeans in a cornfield, waiting for the reverb to be turned up. That was pretty much how I got into this. I enjoy doing books, and actually the Sun, Sand, Surf, and Sidewalls 4th edition is the 31st book that I have written, published, put on the market. And it's a lot of books, all of them on Midwest rock and roll.
Oh wow. Okay. So that was going to lead me to my next question is kind of what was your background, but you've touched on a lot of that already.
Yeah, I was, of course, if I loved music and I loved bands and I got some autographs along the road, I had to buy records. 45 records were the way to go. I mean, if you're going to go see the Trashmen, you better have the Surf and Bird 45 in your hand, which I did. And they signed that night, and I still have it. 1963, my introduction into real surf music with real reverb jacked up. That really in an armory in a Midwest town. That was my way to go. So, I started, my first books were discographies. And I didn't care about the Beatles and Elvis. I just cared about the local bands that played the local venues that were fortunate enough to make a record, or those amazing Minneapolis bands that used to come out to our rural areas, and we'd get to see the good stuff. And they all had many, many records. So I used to start to do discographies. And actually, the first discography on a state's rock music scene was done by 2 authors from Texas, and they did a series of 2 books called A Journey Through Time. And I love the book, and it was so simple. Just list 45s, and that's really what it got down to. So that allowed me to do books on Minnesota, Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Chicago, Kansas, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, and Hawaii. And everybody says, Hawaii, why on earth did you do that? Because I had to go out every year and do research. And that allowed me.
That sounds terrible.
5-6 vacations on Oahu, and it started and allowed me to do my book Hawaii Go-Go, which is sold out unfortunately right now, but I'm looking at doing a reprint. So it was just a way to learn. I did a book on the House of Blues record story, the famed House of Blues records that was in business for 3 years, 4 Grammys, and gone. And I go, wait a second. 3 years, 4 Grammys, and gone, owned by one of the richest men in the world. Why? Where did it go? How did that happen? So that it motivated me to do a book called The House of Blues Record Story. And that was nominated 2 years ago, 3 years ago, as one of the 5 best research books on music in the United States for that year, 2023, which was a real great feeling for me because it was a lot of research to finally get the parties who were involved to give up the information on why it was gone so fast. But in the meantime, it put out this amazing uh, record collection of the best blues music ever heard by anybody and ever chronicled and put together by a label. And it's great fun. So, all kinds of books, all kinds of topics. Oh, I did one book called The Midwest Rock Art Collection. What is that? Well, it's a nice way of saying band posters hanging on a telephone post and 4 staple holes from each corner. Take them back home, flatten them under the mattress, get them looking good, and years later put them all together in a book. And that book was a lot of fun too.
That leads me to another question, actually. I was really impressed with a lot of the ephemera that you feature in the book, and there's some different things in this book that aren't featured in the previous editions. Could you talk about some of the new editions that you have in this book? And
Yeah, I in the first 3 editions, my mind was on purpose, total tunnel vision, 1963 to 1965, maybe a few things in the 70s by Flash Cadillac, who did a great surf and hot rod record that people didn't know about, and that kind of a touch. And then, part of it is I wanted to change that direction somewhat. The other part is, unfortunately, in a good way, I went to Surf Guitar 101 and I got educated. And I found out there were groups like the Ghastly Ones and the Coffin Daggers and the Frigidaires and the Aqua Velvets and the Phantom Surfers. And again, I got to meet the participants. I found out people just like me, insect surfers. The leader of the group, one of the most crazy, wild guitarists you're ever going to see in surf music, he collected stuff on posters and albums like I did. And I go, all right, kindred spirit. And so it was really a combination of all those things kind of coming together that I said, all right, I want to change the book up. And about 45% of my new book is all bands you can see right now today, or they're on a reunion tour, or they're back out, they're alive. They're like the Frigidaires, the Surfragettes, or this amazing new band I just learned of, the Tourmaliners
oh yeah,
from San Diego. And I went, whoa, first time I saw them was at Surf Guitar 101. And my reaction was, you know what? That reminds me of the show I was at with the Astronauts or the Trashmen or whatever, the T-Bones or whatever group that I came up with, Trashmen. They just kind of hit me right there where it like, wow, that's really amazing. So I decided to change the book up, and I'm glad I did. It's been, I think, probably more widely received, but I think there's a lot of people that are instrumental surf fans only that have opened the pages and go, whoa, there's some really cool other kinds of things in here that I had never heard about. So the truth of the matter is, it's been an education for me, and I think an education for many of the people that have seen and read my books.
all right. You touched on a lot of things. I want to try and maneuver my way through them. So, first of all, Surf Guitar 101. It's
Yeah,
it's like homecoming, right? It's where you and I met for the first time,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it's great.
So it's a big old love fest, and you're going to be there this weekend, correct?
Yes, I'm flying out Thursday,
All
and we're
right.
going to land out in California, and then get ready for the opening day of Friday, all of Saturday, and all of Sunday. I'll have the new book along. I will actually have available all 4 books along, and there's not a lot of those sets in existence, to be quite candid with you. And it's just going to be fun. I'm going to have a chance to hear the bomb Boris. Is that
Hmm.
pronounced
Yep.
correctly? I've always wanted to. I've seen the videos, so of course I've got to see the show. It's pretty amazing, and I'm going to have a chance to see a lot of groups that I've been reading about, I've listened to, I've kind of fallen in love with. Some I've really fallen in love with, and it's just an amazing chance to hang, meet people, and further my hobby. Uh, Pick up some signatures, and my wife says I'm not doing another book. She's completely shut me down, but I'll do something. I always do. Like I see on the music stand behind you. 2 years ago, I put out a small book for Christmas, and I sent it to friends and people who have bought the books. Yeah, and it's just that was my kind of one of my updates. And be candid with you, I plan on another new update uh, for this holiday season. You'll be getting one in the mail, and it's just fun. And what it does, it kind of picks up and furthers the story with a few small steps, and then who knows where those small steps may go. You just never know.
Yeah, I wanted to say how much I appreciated the inclusion of a lot of newer bands because in surf music, we often are looking back, right? Because that's where
Yep,
we got
yep,
started. And a lot of us are just big old nerds and we love the history, we love the lore and all that stuff. We tend to get lost back then. So, but right now, there's some special things
yeah,
happening.
yeah.
So, go ahead.
And I really was a person lost back then. And I admit that because I was in my wheelhouse and I was happy and I was having fun and my youth had come back to me again. I could feel it. And then after getting out the surf guitar 101, it really just went, whoa, well, I didn't know this. I mean, I'm not sitting here and saying this because you're sitting on the screen with me. I got blown away by the Frigidaires. I really did. It reminded me three guitar front attack. That's what I called it. It reminded me of the days of the astronauts because it was exactly the same lineup, the same number of people, the same number of players, the same reverb. It was like wow. And you probably heard last year the tribute to the astronauts that was done, and then the next day I hear the Frigidaire set, and I go, "Whoa! I just got that experience last night, and I'm hearing it again." And then and then I'll be candid. I thought, "Wow, this band's got guts. They're actually singing on stage." I thought some shoes or some books or some heavy objects would come flying up at you. And I go, this is the wrong room to be testing the vocal cords, guys. Don't you get it? And then all of a sudden, I've realized they do get it. That was what I think why I enjoyed your last two albums so much because it gave me a compliment of both. It gave me a feeling of both. So, for fun this year, I put a last page in the fourth edition. And for that book, I did a count of all instrumental bands or accounts of bands who actually use vocals. And it was instrumental 84, vocals 70. That would have never happened before in my other books, to be candid with you. It was a real, I think, trying to meld together and share. And actually, the person who kind of gave me the idea to go ahead and do that was John Blair. I I talked to we communicate a lot, and uh, he said, and every now and then I'd look at an inclusion into the book, and I say, John, what do you think of this band? He goes, I'm not sure they're really surf. I'm going, okay, I get it. That's his nice way of saying it really doesn't fit what you're doing, Tom Tourville. And I appreciate that because he gets me. He understands
Mhm.
what I'm trying to do. He also is a purist at heart.
Mhm.
Look at some of his YouTube posts and his
Mhm.
Facebook posts, I should say. They're right from the get-go, 1963, 1964. And look at all the liner notes he's written. I mean, his heart, his head, his soul is there as well. So I love the fact that I included the new artists, the new groups. There's some in there that just excite me to the nth degree. Uh, I'm a Frigidaires fan. When's the third album coming out? And I, the Tourmaliners just absolutely just knocked me out. I mean, wow. Uh, all I can do is say, when are they going to tour? Because I have to see them again. I doubt if I'll be getting to San Diego in the near future. But then again, I didn't think I'd be to Anaheim, California this year in the near future. So it's really kind of a combination trade-off. And Devin Berryhill, the lead guitarist for the Tourmaliners, is going to participate. Maybe I shouldn't say this. He's going to be one of the guest guitarists in Eddie Angel's guitar party.
Oh, nice.
Isn't that fabulous? And and I finally learned maybe I shouldn't say this, one of the surf legends they're going to be doing the hour talk with, and that's Al Valdez from the original Safaris.
Oh, cool.
And the guy has a dead Bombara to be and gum gripped sticks and just all of the great stuff they did. And I went, wow, where would I ever get a chance to hear Al Valdez tell some stories? Count me in, get me a chair, and don't bother me. It's going to be, those are the kinds of fun things that make me look forward to Surf Guitar 101. I want to touch on something that I want you had mentioned, and then we changed, or I changed subjects. Sorry. Yes, everything you see in the books I own. I don't put an autograph in any of the books unless it's in my collection. And my collections, as you can see, is pretty vast. The collectibles, you see the posters, the records, all the other memorabilia. Yes, that's in my collection. Got to remember, I've been grabbing that loot since I was 14 years old, and it goes back a long ways, and it's part of my life. I look at the books, I see Tom Tourville and who I am and where I've been, and it's really great fun.
That's amazing, Tom. I also want to say thank you absolutely for the kind words. I really appreciate it. It really means a lot to me. And this is surf music, right? This is the community. It's the rule, not the exception, right? So it's like I go into surf music, and I've talked about this a lot ad nauseum on my channel, how much I go into a conversation with someone I've never met in the surf music community as a friend. We're already friends. I just assume I assume that, and more times than not, that's the case, right?
I would concur.
Yeah, so that's great. I missed a couple of things, but I also want to talk about a couple other things that are new in this edition that aren't in the. So you talked about the instrumental versus vocal. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to say. I wanted to share our appreciation for Gary Usher and all the studio projects, because I'm a huge fan of that stuff, and I know you are too. Like all the Hondel's records and that stuff, just all the Wrecking Crew, like one-off records, those because those are featured heavily in all your books. And every time I look at those, I'm like, man, Tom gets it. I love that stuff. It's because it's underrated. That these bands didn't get to tour, they didn't get to play. I mean, there were touring, entities known as the Hondel's, but they didn't really exist. They weren't really a band, right? So I appreciate all of that stuff and all the history and intertwining, intermingling that went along with that. So in this book, there's one thing I loved, things you don't think about. There were printing plates for marketing material for surf bands. I was like, holy crap, I've never seen anything like this before. And you see it first in Tom's book. So contracts, I've seen contracts in I have like a Beach Boys day-to-day book, and I've seen those things. I think there might be some in John Blair's books as well, but there's extensive contracts. Business cards, which are so much fun. Another favorite moment there's a couple of favorite moments of mine in the book that I wanted to just say, that I just wanted to share with the audience. there's an Eddie Bertrand business card. And on the page right next to it, we were talking about studio groups, is Kurt Betcher's signature, and I love like Sunshine Pop and that Millennium record and the Sagittarius record. Oh my
Yeah.
God, like seeing those two next to each other, it's a beautiful layout. And so yeah, do you want to talk any more about some of those things, business cards, contracts, like just things you don't see every day?
Well, part of the idea when you do one of these books is not only to share the collection and share the love, um, is trying to say, even to musicians such as yourself, all right, what is it that you've never seen? What is it you haven't paid attention to? And I don't want to say that I'm different, but I did pay attention to those things, and they always were a part of my collectible, mind. And so my what was and I think you're going to touch on where we are right now. What was the favorite thing I put in the book, in my opinion? The section called "So What Did They Get Paid?" This is so common, and I think you'll understand this. You've worked with musicians, you've got musicians in your group. A lot of them don't pay any attention to business. They're oblivious. Where's the gig? What time do I need to be there? Oops, I've only got 5 extra guitar strings. Oh well, that's good enough, and away they go. And whoops, I forgot to bring my drumsticks. I've seen it happen. And so what I went ahead and did is, there is another side to music, the music business, or even going way back to the days of the early tours, the Midwest, of the West Coast surf groups. And that whole aspect was the business side. What did Link Ray get paid for playing on a tour package show in a wooden ballroom in Iowa? What? Give me a second. I got to process that. What did the Beach Boys actually get paid in 1963 to drive to the Midwest in a station wagon and play ballroom after ballroom after ballroom, times 2 tours that year? Now, this is the Beach Boys, but you got to remember then, there were no bigger band other than they had more hits than the Astronauts, than the Marquettes, than the Routers, all those bands. So I thought it would be fun to go back, and I have access to a lot of old memorabilia from ballrooms, as that's been one of my collectible points in my life. And we have a local amusement park here where I live, and the ballroom that stood there was a legendary Roof Garden Ballroom. It was the kind of granddaddy of ballrooms in the Midwest. It was doing rock and roll before the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake had actually brought a band to do rock and roll into their ballroom. So I had access to the archives of that ballroom, and I've turned most of all that information back over to the amusement park. It has some great archives on where the ballroom stood. But what it did is it gave me a chance to be able to go back and research. And one of the things about all this collection is the amusement park allows me to come in and do research in the contracts or make a copy of a contract. And so it allowed me to really do lots and lots of costs of what it costs to bring a band in. Now, keep in mind, 1964, $250 for a band. That was big money. That was bringing a national act in. That was a big deal. You got to remember, booking the Beach Boys in a small rural ballroom that didn't hold any more than 600 kids was like booking the Beatles to your high school prom.
Right.
It was significant. It was a big deal. It was something that really stood out. So I loved the section. So what did they get paid? And it was a chance to kind of share. Link Ray, $284. The Marquettes, $275. Beach Boys, 1963, $650. Now keep in mind, they had only been playing out in California in ballrooms and in clubs and venues there, they weren't getting more than 200, maybe 225, 250 on a good night. So driving to a ballroom in the Midwest for 650, Murray's wishes were coming true. They were making money, just had never done it there before. And so that was the Trashmen, who were the kings of surf in the Midwest. They were making 400. That was really big money. I mean, you remember it, Beach Boys 650, Trashmen 400. Everybody was under the Trashmen, basically, as related to what they were getting paid. So I thought that was a big deal. I love showing the contracts where people can learn sometimes the idiosyncrasies. There's nothing more fun than to read the writer on a Jerry Lee Lewis contract after he had been outed and marrying his cousin. And he was blackballed in the industry. There's nothing more fun than to read the writer on what Jerry Lee had to do that night to get paid. The line he had to toe. You cannot push the piano off the stage this time and break it. If you do, you're paying double the cost for me to buy a new piano. Right out of the contracts, you can't make it up. It's just marvelous. The business cards. Who could think that a 2 to 3 inch piece of cardstock could tell so many stories? And I think you just figured that out when you look at the business cards of surf, and you look at all those cards, even where the Crossfires, who later became the Turtles, had a wooden business card, business
cool.
card made of wood. And I kept thinking, well, I hope they didn't put that in their back pocket when they sat down, because it would have shattered and gone to pieces. And you look at all these cards, and once again, they tell a story. You just look at them from piece to piece, name to name, and it kind of all comes in there. So those were really fun for me. And somebody had just on an interview last week asked me what were the most new surprises. And the two that really struck me, of course, and I'm not just talking because you're sitting there. I love putting the two Frigidaires releases in because I like them, and I say that, and I'm not shy about saying that. And I what I liked about the releases is that they gave me a mix of music that I grew up with. That was akin to who I was and where I came from. The other one that really, really struck me was the Makaha sessions. That was done by Steel Derrick Records. And if a lot of people don't know, that's owned by Nelson Bragg. And for the last 20 years, Mr. Bragg has been the key percussionist for a gentleman by the name of Brian Wilson. And, Nelson is his own well-known, legendary entity in the industry. And I get to meet him out at Surf Guitar 101. Am I excited? Yeah. And what he did with that album is, I think, so special. He brought back together, or not together for the first time, but back together because they needed to come together, because shortly after that session was done, two of the participants would pass away. And on that recording session, he had Jerry Cole of Jerry Cole and the Spacemen. If you talk to any member of the Spacemen, they will tell you, we've never used that name in our lives. We never performed as the Spacemen. That was only on the records. That was only done at Capitol. Had nothing to do with us to do out working the streets. But he also included Don Randy, the amazing keyboard player that kind of goes back. And remember, Don had as big a career as a member of the Wrecking Crew as being the keyboard player for Frank Sinatra. Same night. One day he's doing a cut by the Marquettes. Next night he's doing Frank Sinatra. The inclusion of, I mentioned David Marks, one of the founding members of the Beach Boys, and
Hal Blaine.
Hal Blaine. How could I forget? Hal Blaine. I mean, the man that invented rock, surf, pop, music, drumming. I mean, let's just be honest. There's a lot of amazing drummers out there, but if you don't bow down when you saw Hal Blaine, you're not thinking right. And he brought those four together for a special session. And we had no idea it'd be as special as it was. So, you know, years ago when the Wrecking Crew was becoming really popular and before the movie came out and just the book was on the market, I figured, you know what? I'm going to be a crazy adult now. I'm going to contact as many members of the Wrecking Crew, thank you, Facebook, as I could find and say, as goofy as this sounds, could I have your autograph? In doing that, I built up a massive collection of members of the Wrecking Crew. Probably at 80% of all the members of the Wrecking Crew actually have in my collection. So it wasn't hard then, to put together all the players that were in these recording sessions. And one of the things I noted in my new book, and you really see it now because you see the same names, Steve Douglas, Hal Blaine, Glenn Campbell, over and over and over again, because they were the ones getting paid to play the music so that we would buy the records.
Tommy
And
Tedesco, Jay Migliore. I mean, just such heavy hitters, man.
it just doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Last week, a guy asked me, what's the most common name you've seen in all the Wrecking Crew library? And the name is Steve Douglas.
Yeah.
Steve played on anything and everything, and and more important, a lot of people don't realize, look at old contracts. And there are as many out there you can read. In the book, Stephen McPartland shows a lot of the original contracts, is that besides Steve Douglas playing on the records, he was the session leader. He was the one that brought the guys and the gals together. He was the one that created the band so that the record, and he knew the ins and outs of every single player and what would work best because he had already seen the charts and worked with the charts. So when he built the band, he built a band that fit to the very best that it could do. I mean, the guy was incredible. And so this last book really showed the repetitiveness, and I don't find that as a negative at all.
No.
I find it fascinating because here was how the bands were crafted and putting together. In this new book, I talked about the legendary Masked Surfers, which was a conglomeration of artists put together by Dean Torrance for a made-for-TV movie on the history and basically the Dead Man's Curve period of Jan and Dean. And what did I think, and I'm probably missing about 8 or 9 autographs to be candid with you, but I mean, they went from everybody from Harry Nilsson, down to Gary Griffin, who you don't know, but he is a big part of the Beach Boys history, especially the last 25 years. He was kind of, in one respect, Brian Wilson's guy. When Brian Wilson wanted keyboards, Brian Wilson's style, it was Gary Griffin that he touched upon. And so you look at a lot of the mix of the players that were involved in the legendary Masked Surfers. And I was just shocked that not more has been made of that kind of the gathering of the tribe, so to speak, as it relates to surf and hot rod and beach music. It's just incredible, and it was amazing.
Just real quick, that's another favorite moment of mine in the book is the legendary Masked Surfers. It takes up like 2 or 3 pages of autographs, and then on the next page it's the Lively Ones, which is like probably my second favorite first wave group. And I actually had the honor to with the Mystery Men to perform with the Lively Ones at SG 101, and that was just like full circle moment, because Tom, you and I share a similar story. It's separated by 30 years, but I was 14 in 1995, and I heard my first surf music like in person, and then that led me to all these things, and I was just hooked. So, and I've been collecting ever since as well. Not necessarily autographs; I only have a handful, but I think you and I are kindred spirits in those ways. So yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no, you're fine. It's kind of fun because it's the back and forth. I was just thinking a second here. I'm supposed to be speaking to a service club in about 2 weeks. and I've actually not put any notes down. All of a sudden, my mind just went to start out telling about the story of a 14-year-old kid, and your presentation will be, you can just roll through it. It's not going to be that difficult. So, the Wrecking Crew holds a special place in my heart. And Hondells is probably one of my all-time favorite groups of all time. And I think I mentioned in the book, I got a Hondells feel when I was listening to the Frigidaires. And when I was a kid, I went out and saw the Hondells at a ballroom, and I got 4 autographs. And then in reading McPartland's books, I've come to realize there were 30 Hondells.
Yeah.
So I had 2 choices: get frustrated or contact 26 guys and see if they'd part with an autograph. And 26, I bet 25 did. And it was a building of the Hondells family. And even the guys in the band had never seen this done before. And it was a building of the Hondells family that I could do easily through my books. And they shared a piece of them with me. And that was their signature on a photo, on a 45, on a white piece of paper. It's the easiest way to do a scan and put it in a book, and just, do those kinds of things. And so in some respects, I've gone back and I've met a lot of groups in their entirety. And so somebody was saying to me they were going to do a presentation with some of the legendary surfer artists or music artists from the 60s. And it was hard to find because they didn't know where to find anybody. And I'm going, well, yes, we've lost a lot of amazing musicians in the last 4 to 5 years. I mean, so much so it's scary. But there's so many still out there that would be honored to tell their story. And they're not hard to find. Have you heard of Facebook? They're all on Facebook, guys and gals. They all still love their life. They love their career. They like to hold their album cover and show it to friends and family and fans. They know this. So, there's amazing artists out there, and they're still reachable. They're still touchable. And it's not too late if you're a fan to reach out and find some of these guys. I used Jerry Lemire, who played in the Marquettes and was one of the mainstays to the recording and the touring of the Hondells. He wrote a foreword for one of my books. He's living in Florida. It's, Buzz Cason, who really was like
Ronnie and the Daytonas, right?
Ronnie and the Daytonas. And then later he was West Coast president for Liberty Records. There's the stories. I mean, I go, you got any stories about any hot rod records? And he was on like 20 of them, and it's like, it's great. And you can talk to those guys. They want to be spoken with. They want to be a part of your interest in their life and their career. And it's okay to tell them they're cool and they're memorable and you love them. And I mean that sincerely.
Amen.
And I do that all the time with my books. And I mean it, because I look at the books and it's kind of like a building of 460-page family reunion book. Mm-hmm. And they're all from it. And I think, the person that maybe came closest to that was Bob Daly. And Bob's book, his book on surfing guitars is just, it's like the Bible. And it's incredible. And, Bob has amazing stories. And people forget when they read the book, Bob's a musician. He had his story. He loves to talk about the Surf Raiders. Don't kid yourself. Those were some of the best times when he and his wife were together. Mm-hmm. And it's a very special time for Bob and Linda out playing surf music, all over the state of California and the West Coast. So it's, wow, it's really, really fun.
Let me ask you something. Do you find, because you've crossed many genres, and this may be a little bit of a bias here on my end, but do you find, because I certainly do, that surf music and surf musicians are more approachable or are more apt to sign that autograph or chat with you or and does that cross because I'm approaching it, from a standpoint starting 30 years later, does that approach hold even back in the 1960s?
Yeah, there's no question. I look at garage music, I look at blues, and I look at surf. My three favorite pieces. There's no question that garage band musicians are not as approachable. It was kind of like, and everybody said, "Why is that?" And I go, "It's part attitude." And you got to remember that attitude was embedded in them literally during those garage band, Farfisa driven, you know, Vox years of rock and roll. And then I love blues. I think blues musicians might be the most approachable because they made their whole life on the road. They're a little bit standoffish once in a while because they've been burnt so many times on the road. But once you get 10 seconds with them, the shield drops down and they're ready to talk about blues. Blues musicians, it's extremely important you do some research. You want to know a little bit about their career. You want to know about those nights that they spent working the bars in Tijuana to get paid. You have to learn those things. And when you can talk with them about those things, you got them. The people who probably love, and I use that word, the recognition, the time, the shaking of a hand are the surf, hot rod, and beach musicians because they came up and they were in, we'll call the beginning of the years of sunshine. They were in the years of fun. They were in it when life was carefree and you could be a 14-year-old kid in Iowa and Minnesota and still get it. And then more importantly, everything they knew they loved and that was important to them was snatched away overnight. Gone. You got to remember their lives and the music that we're talking about today was only 3 to 4, maybe an oldster at 5 years and gone. I mean, their career, their life, their world, their aura, their sand, their sun, their beach, their board, their pistons were all taken away in about 3 to 5 years.
1961 and 1965. That's it.
And
That's all we got.
and it was gone. So people like us, when we reach out and we want to shake a hand and we want to get an autograph and we want to say we're a fan and we're not afraid to maybe drop the word legend when we're talking about who they are and what they are, because to us they are.
Absolutely.
Those musicians are legends to Tom Tourville and they're legends to you. I mean, they're very important. There are VIPs.
Oh
So
yeah.
when we drop that and we talk about that, that door just opens wide and they want to talk, they want to share. They'll sign autographs. They're there. And think back, and you've sat in on some of those those hour interview sessions that John Paul does. And at Surf Guitar 101, they're incredible.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely amazing. It's like if I had only known. And I have learned who the two legends are going to be this year. So I'm doing my research so I don't come off like a complete idiot. And I don't know a lot about them, but I've learned, I've learned enough about them that I'm excited to have a brief, short conversation while they're jotting some autographs down for Tom Tourville. And who knows, maybe one day they could end up in a book. And that's all the fun of it.
All right. Tom, how are you doing on time? Can we keep going or because I got some more questions I'd like to ask just because I'm having a great time.
You do your questions.
Okay.
I'll be happy to answer them.
All right. So these are just kind of fun. I think we touched on most of the things in the book and I got to say I loved this book. It's a beautiful book. Filled with some of my favorite music and just memories. I was ear to ear grin the whole time I was reading it. So it's really been a pleasure to read and of course to get to talk to you.
I'm still waiting for that review.
Yeah, I know.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I'm getting a bit of a Indiana Jones kind of feel. You're doing this surf music archaeology. What do you have any crazy stories you'd like to tell us? If not, that's fine. But is there any, Tom Tourville standing out in the rain for hours, or having to, missing a bus to find so and so sitting in the diner where you caught their autograph? Anything like that you'd like to talk about? Any special
Yeah,
stories?
this will take about 3 minutes, so I'll kind of pre-warn you. And I'm going to cheat. I'm going to leave that surf era a little bit, and I'm going to go into the early fun years of rock and roll with a band called Sam, the Sham, and the Pharaohs out of Dallas, Texas. Wooly Bully, Little Red Riding Hood, the hair on my chinny chin chin, um, Old McDonald's Boogaloo Farm. Crazy when you think about it. So I was a kid growing up in Minnesota. I was just, I think I was still 14, and this big Roof Garden Ballroom, which was like 50 miles from me, was bringing in Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs. Oh, and by the way, with the Shamettes, I mean, it was the full review. And so I figured, I want to go down and see this band. So I talked my neighbor into driving us both down to see Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs. Of course, he got to the park and he headed for the rides. Me, I went to the back door of the ballroom because that's where all the action is. Now, this is a 2-story wooden ballroom, so you're climbing up all the 2 flights of wooden stairs, carrying all your gear. And the reaction from the musicians is always the same when they pull in the parking lot. They get out of the van. In this case, Sam and the boys were driving a hearse, a 40s Cadillac hearse. They pulled in the parking lot, and the Pharaohs, of course, I was a dumb kid thinking maybe they still wear their Arab garb, maybe. Like, it'd be cool. Well, they all jump out in cutoffs and tennis shoes and sandals and jeans, and they looked like they were road weary. And they saw those stairs and they went, "Oh no." So I went over to the guy who had the biggest "oh no." I found out he was the drummer, of course. And I said, "Would you like some help carrying your gear up the stairs?" They go, "Yeah." So here was this dumb kid humping all their gear up these 2 flights of stairs and, taking the gear into the ballroom for them. So together we got all the gear up to the top of the stairs. Sam's not dumb. He stayed in the front seat of the hearse. He never got out. He never moved the gear. The boys were doing all the work, right?
Yeah.
But Sam actually showed up wearing a sport coat, and looking regal. Didn't have his turban on, but looking great. So I got up all the stuff up in the ballroom, and I finally said to the drummer, I said, "Well, for all this help, any chance I can hear your sound check?" He goes, "Yes, and even better yet, you know what you are?" I said, "No." He says, "You're an official pharaoh." "What's your name?" I said, "My name's Tom." "Well, Tom, you're a pharaoh for the day." And he says, "You're one of the guys. You can hang. You can go anywhere you want." And he says, "Come on, let's go back down to the hearse." And he says, "Have you met Sam?" I said, "No, but I'd like some autographs." "Not a problem." So we went down to the hearse. We walked around the back, opened the back door, and started rummaging. That's the best way to put it, rummaging, because the gear was all gone. Pulled out 2 black and white glossies, pulled out a 45 on MGM Records, and a cardboard poster from a show they had done maybe like 2 or 3 weeks before in Indiana, with a picture on it.
Mhm.
They just had paper posters here.
Mhm.
So here I was back up the stairs with a cardboard poster, 2 signed photos, started working my way around the room to all the guys, and a 45, and got all this stuff autographed. Yes, I still own it all. And I got to sit here the sound check. And at that time, I knew my ride was heading back home. So for one day, I got to haul the gear, hang with the pharaohs, become an official pharaoh at age 14. I'll have you. Still have the loot in my archives. And that was rock and roll.
Amazing.
That was the coolest rock and roll. And I was the Sham. Unfortunately, he didn't bring the Shamettes. what what fun. Four guys and Sam and in a ballroom doing up there in his cheesy farfisa, working out the lead notes for Wooly Bully. And I'm
Hmm.
going, pinch me.
Oh yeah.
This is what cool is all about. I got back home and I've been a Sam fan for the rest of my life. One of the books we recently did on the history of the Roof Garden Ballroom, Sam did a quote for the book for us for our
How
front
cool.
our front cover, no less. And Sam still lives in Memphis. He owns a mission, and his whole life is outreach for those that are homeless and to give them a lift up, a helping hand. And he's an amazing man. He is
Wow.
absolutely one of a kind.
So, would you say that's your most cherished autograph, or is there something aside from that?
You know,
Or
I
I know that's hard. That's like picking your favorite child. Do you have a handful
yeah.
that you
Well,
just you look at and you're like, damn, I have that.
Here,
You know, that sort of thing.
here's my favorite collection of four surf autographs. Was I went down to the Rough Garden Ballroom again and saw the Hondells, and that was really special because I was a huge fan of their music, and I got a set of autographs, and I didn't pay much attention to it, and then I kind of held it and I kept it together, and I looked at those autographs. There's Richard Burns and there's Joe Kelly, and there's Chuck Girard. What? Chuck Girard. Well, I had been reading Steve McParland's books, and Steve said emphatically Chuck Girard never toured with the Hondells. He was a session singer only. He didn't ride the miles, he didn't ride the vans. He
Hmm.
played one date, one night at Lake Tahoe. So he actually could say he was a Hondell because
Hmm.
he worked a gig one night, but he never toured. I went back and looked at my autographs and I go, no, that says Chuck Girard. And that wasn't Ballroom in Iowa in the middle of the Midwest. So I had enough. I had contacted Chuck a couple of different times and said, could I get a couple autographs? And I always got the autographs back, and usually with a message from the Bible, which is wonderful because Chuck's spirituality was just bar none, and was an absolute amazing storyteller of faith, and I appreciated him doing that. And so I looked at the autograph from that he sent me, and I looked at the autograph from the Roof Garden Ballroom, and they were the same. It wasn't some guy trying to rib me, in the band, like,
Hmm.
I'll get him. I'll put Chuck's autograph down. Nope, they're real. And so I've sat there and I put that in the last book, and it's kind of like Chuck Girard never toured, but here he was at a date in Iowa playing a ballroom. Don't ask, I don't know. We lost Chuck about a year and a half ago. And if we hadn't, I plan on asking him that question. How did you end up in Iowa and you never toured? I was told. So, anyway, um, who would have thunk? My first night, 14 years old again, my dad was a high school teacher. He did not want me out hanging around rock and roll. That was not the stuff to be at. And I kept saying, Dad, this is not rock and roll. This is surf music. There were two DJs at a local radio station who always had the reputation for short pain, but they would put on these amazing rock and roll shows in our local armory. And they were bringing in the Trashmen. And I'm going, I, as a kid, I had a Trashman poster in my bedroom, and I joined the Trashman fan club. By the way, I got my button, I got my membership card, and I got my signed photo, which of course was hanging on the wall when I was a kid. I mean, I was a Trashman fan, and so I had to get to this Trashman show. It was the last thing that ever happened to me, and it super important. I didn't care about the girls and other guys. I wanted to see the Trashmen. So they were coming to the Fairmont, Minnesota Armory. I had my 45. And at first I had to get over the big hurdle. Dad, I want to go see the Trashmen. So I convinced him that I would wear a sport coat. I'd have a coat and tie. The tie lasted just past the front door. and wearing corduroy pants. I mean, my
Oh.
mom dressed me like a complete nerd from Happy Days just so that I would look proper as the son of a school teacher. And he dropped me off, and I had to be picked up in exactly 1 hour and 45 minutes. No, I didn't get to stay to the end, but they played Surfing Bird 3 times, so it didn't matter. It was all cool. So I was a little late. I'm walking up this kind of rampway to get into the armory, and they've got these two doors that are bigger than army tanks practically. And I opened one of the doors. And I stood there, and I swear to God, my hair moved because that reverb was jacked up so high. I mean, it was just pounding, and I'm going, "Yeah, baby, this is it." And I walked in, and the tie was off, and here I was at the seeing the Trashmen. And so during the day, I got to only be around for one break. I mean, I hustled up there with my ball pen and my 45. I had him sign the sleeve. I was smart enough not to have him sign a blue ballpoint pen on a red label, which you would never see in a million years, dark red for that matter. And so I had my autographs on the 45 sleeve, and I reminded Dale Winslow and Tony Andreessen numerous times. I said, "Do you remember me? I was the kid." And they start laughing and go, "Oh, sure, we remember you." And it was just kind of fun, to sit and let them know my very first time I experienced the Trashmen of about 20 different times. And yeah, that was special. That was surf. That was hot rod. That was the beach. That was the sun. That was my Frankie and Annette all wrapped into one great night in an armory standing next to a cannon and 3 Jeeps.
Nice.
I was there. I
Yeah.
was I was where I needed to be, and I'm grateful to this very day. And it's probably that stupid experience that's allowed me to keep my friendship with all the guys in the band. And I just got a nice email last week from Bob Reed, the bass player, and he just had a birthday, and I wished him a happy birthday, and he's doing well. And I so hope the guys do one more time, but I'm not sure necessarily that's quite in them. But it's. I said, come on up, do some cameo with somebody else, do something. So yeah, that's really great fun.
Amazing. All right, just two more questions.
Sure.
Do you have any Holy Grail autographs that you haven't been able to get that you just so desperately want? And maybe some of our viewers can help you out with it.
That's really a good question. There are a few groups along the road that I wish I have in pieces, but I don't have them all together. It was like one of my best friends in Portland, who was an autograph collector, like from another planet. He was the one that found me that set of Hondel's autographs, and he didn't even know that Chuck Girard wasn't supposed to be at a show that night. It was kind of fun that we had talked about it, and he had his set that he had gotten from another ballroom out in the West Coast, and of course I got one from Iowa, and his didn't have Chuck Girard, I should say, and mine did, and he wanted, of course, make a trade immediately. Not really. Nothing comes to mind. I about 4 or 5 years ago, I learned of this group called the Riddlers, and they're from a little town outside of Amsterdam, Holland, and they put out this killer 45 of great surf, jacked up, more kind of like new wave, but yet it had a lot of pureness to the foundation of surf music. It was a melding of both, and it was probably classic surf music jacked up on attitude, which I loved. And I found this record, and I went, "Oh God, it's so cool!" So over the last few years, I've become acquainted with a guy by the name of Eddie Luca, who owns Surfin's Back Again. It's a web store that's out of Amsterdam, Holland. And his web, and guys and gals watching today or listening, go to Surfing's Back Again, become a member of the newsletter. He puts it out once a month, and it's just amazing. So I sent Eddie an email, and I said, "Do you know the Riddlers?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he mentions 2 or 3 names of the members of the band. He goes, "They're always buying stuff from me, or I see them in clubs because a lot of them, 2 of them were DJs. They're club DJs around Amsterdam. So I'll go in a club, and there's a member of the Riddlers." So I said to Eddie, I said, "Any chance you could get me an autograph?" And that was the leader of the group who frequents, and they do, swapping back and forth of records. And he says, "Yep, I'll get it for you." So I sent him my 45 and my sleeve and said, "Would you get Eddie to sign this for me? Or excuse me, would you get the leader to sign this for me?" His name's Dab. And he goes, "It may take me a little while, but we'll get this done." Well, unbeknownst to me, the band had never been back together since their last date over 25 years ago. And so what Dab decided to do is he invited everybody, if they could make it, to a pub in Amsterdam for a pint. And it was going to be, let's just sit and hang together. We've not done that for years. All the members of the Riddlers showed up, and he passed my sleeve, my 45 around, and they all autographed it. And the best part about the story is, not only did I get this for my collection, which I really wanted, they all liked the idea, and they reformed and got together and played one show this summer already.
Oh, wow.
A reunion of the Riddlers in Amsterdam.
I don't remember the show portion, but you did talk about them all getting together for a pint in the book. So I love that story. That's cool. They got together, and Eddie said they did one reunion show, and they had a ball. That's amazing.
They forgot what it was like to have fun together. And musicians drift, and they drift apart, and lives change, families change, everything changes. Kids change, and everything changes. And musicians are legendary for drifting apart. And this was one guy in the band who was the leader, thank heavens, who people would listen to, decided, let's get together for a pint, sign this record for this guy from Minnesota, or from Iowa, I should say. I forget where I was born to where I live. And, let's just hang. And that's exactly what happened. And in some small way, I told Eddie, I said, when you saw that reunion show, think of Tom, or you hope you thought of Tom Tourville. I was a part of it. I helped stir the pot with my record, and he laughs. And of course, he got one signed too.
Tom Tourville making magic happen, man. I love it.
So it's all part of those. I always enjoyed a record by, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of a group called Basset Hand. Mm-hmm. And they recorded 2 records for Jubilee Records. Kind of goofy titles, but when you listen to them, one side was like the vocals of the Beach Boys. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is during you're talking 66. Mm-hmm. And I go, wow, is that amazing? And then with just a little bit of digging, I came to learn Basset Hand was always the production team for all of the records that were on the Bang Records label, like the Strange Loves and all McCoy's. Well, Basset Hand is the Strange Loves. Mm. And it was the Strange Loves doing recording under a pseudonym of somebody else that didn't want anybody knowing who they were. Like like you got to remember, it was the 3 sheep herders from Australia. That's who Strange Loves were. Mm. It was 3 Jewish songwriters from Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. And because they had a recording contract, they couldn't get caught moonlighting, so they became the Strange Loves. True story as it sounds. And here they were again, hiding as Basset Hand, and it's a great record. And I put it in the book because if people haven't heard it, shame on them. They need to listen. It's really, really cool.
Awesome. All right. So final question.
Yes.
What's next for Tom Tourville?
Well, next is going to be another one of those holiday books I put out for Christmas.
All
Here's
right.
the
Okay.
ideas. Here's the draft. I got the
Love
maybe
it.
list. I got the gonna do it list. I got to get to Surf 101 to get some more things signed and insert those into the mix. See if I can get a Bombora's. I've already got Lost Straitjackets. So I had them in one book, but I didn't have Danny Amos with them. And
Mhm.
Danny, of course, is a Minnesota kid on top of it, and put out a great record as The Undertones. And so it'd be fun to meet him. And so I got a lot of new things I'm planning for it. So my friends and the regular people who have supported Sun, Sand, Surf, and Sidewalls since issue one, yes, I do know their names and I have their addresses. We'll all get a wonderful gift at Christmas and they'll have a lot of fun and they'll get to take the next step that Tom Tourville did. And I don't know if there'll be a one past that because my wife said I can't do anymore. But we'll have to wait and see who's got the strongest personality in the house, the guy or the gal, one of the two.
That's right. We'll see. And where can so I know you can pick up the book on Amazon and
No,
then oh you can't pick it up through Amazon.
no, the book's available on eBay. Um,
eBay. I knew it was one of those. Okay.
you know, this is probably after I pay the printing bill and after I paid the Amazon fees, and I love Amazon, they're really,
Hmm.
really good. And you got to remember, I've got 12 books on Amazon right now, so
Hmm.
it's about the new pricing structures, so to speak. There's no money left. I
Yeah.
mean, and I don't mind doing a book for nothing because I love it that much. But I do have a printing bill, and the
Yeah.
printing bill looms a little large, and in front of me. So it's available on eBay. It's available. All you got to do is come and see Tom Tourville on Facebook. And there's I mean, there must be, as you know, 25 posts under Tom Tourville, how to buy the book. I mean, as soon as your review is done, I'll put it on Tom Tourville
Mm.
with another orders form. So you can get them through the mail. I mean, they're really easy to get. Just send me a DM on Facebook and I'll put the whole thing together with you. And I'm getting close to paying the bill. I'll probably jump back on Amazon in the very near future. But anyway, politics aside, it's eBay. eBay is easy. It's PayPal driven. I love PayPal. It's easy to do it. Or you want to do better yet, get a hold of Tom Tourville. You never know what you might get for Christmas. And what have I got? Oh, yeah. You never know the cool sticker I might send you that I just put together a sticker of all of my book covers in one shot,
Nice.
all in color, and they're gorgeous. And so if you buy some books out at Surf Guitar 101, you're going to walk away with a really cool Sun, Sand, Surf, and Sidewall sticker. And it's fun to do. I'm having fun. So that's all part of it. So thank you for asking how you can get the book. I want everybody listening, hearing, and watching today to pick up lots of books, but I really appreciate that. The book's important to me. So important. I'm going to show one last time. Here's the book. And I love it. It's my most recent new favorite book.
Mine too. Thank you so much, Tom, for your time, for
Thank
being
you,
so
Chad.
generous. I really do appreciate it. And we'll have a link in the description to where you can buy the book, your eBay link, and your
Thank
Facebook,
you.
and all that
Thank you.
stuff. So,
I appreciate that.
so
And yes, I really have looked into cheap tickets to Atlanta.
come on.
It'd have to be when there's a show so I can geek out and be an absolute idiot over in the corner singing and dancing and having a ball. But yeah, that'd be special. I mean,
Well, if you can make it out this year to Southern Surf Stomp Fest in late September, well, I'll have a table for you. You can set up and sell some
where's that going to be?
in Atlanta.
All right.
Mhm.
All right. All right. You've gee, don't let my wife hear that. You've primed the pump. I got to sit and think about that one.
Yeah, man. Well, I hope to see you out because sadly I won't be at SG 101 this year.
Yeah,
But
I'll miss you.
yeah, man, I'll miss everybody for sure.
I'll get a
'Cause
set of, I'll get a set of autographs in your memory.
awesome, man. I appreciate it. All right, Tom, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Surf's up, Chad. Thank
All
you
right,
much.
surf's up. Cheers, man.
Bye.
Bye. All right.